and welcome back to Dave and Ryan Review. Been a little while. We were supposed to do more over Christmas, but it got a bit busy. But here we are back in the new year with um, probably something a joy, something we enjoy, and something that's quite an iconic series. Um, and that's with friends. But before we get there, David, how are you this fine new year?
I'm good. I'm good in February.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah, been a bit chilly, but yeah, very excited about the review and lots to talk about. You can talk about this for hours,
Yeah,
hours and hours.
absolutely. It is one of those ones. I think we both watched it while it was on telly, so it was, it was live on telly. I remember there was a lot of hubbub when they came to London, and it's like London episodes are showing right now, and that kind of stuff, and even the last episode was such a big event kind of thing. So I remember it, you know, showing. I think it was Channel Four. I think it was on when it was on in the UK. But yeah, Friends ran for 10 years. Obviously, loads of episodes. Do you? I'm not even sure we review it like we would some of the other ones. I guess it's just more like just thinking about it. How do you feel about it? What's your overall thought of Friends? Like, how do you remember it? Do you still watch it?
It seems to have this watchability that I've never had with any other show. And we just, in our house, I don't know about you, but we just have it on sort of as a filler when we don't want to watch something new, or we just want to sort of play on our phone, or but then we end up watching it and laughing all the time. It's just so funny. It's one of those things that's just been on in the background, and then you end up sort of paying attention to it.
Mm.
Like you said, I remember 9 o'clock Friday night, going to Jack's house to watch the episode. I mean, we didn't watch it from season one, so I think we must have joined it around maybe season seven, eight,
Oh
and
wow.
in the week they would show other episodes, so it wasn't
Might
like
have even
this.
been on Sky, I'm trying to remember. It may have even been on Sky when it first came on, because I definitely remember, like, Friends are in London, like the ads for
Mm.
them, for that
I don't
those
remember that.
particular ones.
I don't remember that, but I
Oh,
just
really?
remember being at one point being like, I swear I've watched every episode, and
Hmm.
then being like, oh no, I haven't, and then it just I don't feel like there's a bad episode, not one.
Yeah, I mean, me and Amy were just, um, rewatch stuff all the time, and one of the things, that was on our list was Friends. We were going to watch it from series one all the way to series 10, and we started it, and we had a real problem watching it, and not because it was bad, and not because of anything actually, really. It's because we'd seen it too much. And it wasn't like when we rewatch other things, I haven't watched it as much, so I don't remember certain things. Like, oh yeah, I remember. Oh God, I forgot that happened and stuff like that. But there's no when we were watching it, there was basically no surprises. It's like you knew every line, you knew how the reaction was going to go down, you knew everything. It was very strange watching it, and we were like, oh, I'm not sure if I'm actually enjoying this, just because I remember everything. So actually, we started just watching random episodes, which was probably more fun. That weren't in order because again, they're not really following a singular story, from beginning to end. Obviously, you see the mage, they have kids and stuff, but yeah, we found the experience of like trying to watch it like it's like a series like any other one was very different just because we had watched so many of those episodes so many times,
Mm.
more times than I probably can even count, um, over the years. Not because I sat down and I wanted to make sure I watched series one of Friends and series two, but it was on so much and you just watched it. It's a bit like Simpsons. Those early, the only thing I could compare it to is those early episodes of Simpsons. I've seen them so many times, and and but besides that point, it's still hilarious. It's still funny, and like you said, you're watching it and you're like, oh, we'll just stick it on. And you're like, oh yeah, and then you're just watching it and laughing, and I watch it and I go, and I've seen it. Obviously, there's a lot more takes going on these days of people like it's not actually that funny, or even people back in the day like, oh, it's got a laughing track, or all this stuff, and I'm like, but it is actually funny.
Mm.
Like it's a funny show, and they are funny characters in funny
You know,
situations. Like
the
it
things
is
I
funny.
find funny, the things I find funny are like the side characters who might have like one line in it, or like like a character that's in it for one scene, and like for example, Joey's sister's boyfriend, who's like, numb. We've got a band and they're called Numb Nuts or whatever, and like he's just a hilarious character, and you just get like these random people, but they give it their all. You get like like the
Even
people
the parents are
yeah,
hilarious, really, really
Brad Pitt.
funny. Brad Pitt, the guest stars are very funny. So many great guest stars. Um, you know, I'm with you. There's so many funny bits. There's even like when Joey's working in. I just something that popped in my head when you said about side characters. When Joey's working in the restaurant trying to get sacked so Monica looks good, and that guy's like, "Yeah,
Mm.
dragon," and he's like tall and he's in a lot of shows. I think this guy, but he cracks me up with his like, "Do you got a problem with me?" No, like after she fires Joey, it's so funny. Like it, and I just don't understand how people don't find it funny because
Yeah.
it's inoffensive, right? They're not trying to shock. They're not trying to shock you into like saying something outrageous, right? They're not, they're not. That's not the kind of comedy it is. It's funny reactions. It's Chandler is very funny. Ross, his sort of the way especially as he devolves as we go further on when he gets crazier and crazier. Um, Joey and Chandler's relationship and the girls are funny. I still think probably Phoebe's the funniest out of the girls. Yeah, she is. Um,
She's absolutely mental as
like
well,
she's
like the
off
whole
her
way
rocker,
through.
and they're just looking at
Yeah.
her like, "What is going on?" But they sort of love her anyway.
I,
Like they're just like, "Oh, it's
I, I
Phoebe."
I said to my wife today, I said, wouldn't it be funny if they did a film? They would definitely have it if like Phoebe's intro, her in a nice house, everything seems normal, and then someone's probably top in a sex dungeon or something. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
because she's that crazy.
Even stuff like Janice. I'm just seeing her on the screen
Yeah.
just now, and what a side character. And me and Amy were playing a game about who was the outside of the six, who was like the next uh, biggest starring character. I think it was Gunther after them, and then after them, it's like how many episodes do you think Jack was in? How many episodes do you think Janice was in? And it's actually they're not in that many episodes. Like even Carol is
I
in like
I think
Carol's in like 8 episodes or something across all 10. It's something insane.
yeah.
It's like it's not even close. So it's funny that you sort of talk about side characters, but I remember them as much as the
Mm,
main six because those moments were so funny. And
yeah, definitely. Those the writers are brilliant. The way they wrote it, the way they ended it, the way they never came back to it is something I'll always appreciate.
yeah, you got to
They
respect. You got to respect that they ended it on a pretty good ending. You know, because again, with Friends, because they're not, we're not trying to wrap up stories really. Other than maybe Ross and Rachel's, probably the only thing that really lasted the whole sort of kind of 10 years. They
mm,
just left it on like a heartwarming. Even the last joke is hilarious. Where it's like, oh, should we go get some coffee? And then Chandler's
yeah.
like, where do you want to go? Or like, do you know anywhere we can go? Or something like, just classic Chandler. And he just says it so it's just brilliant. It's just so fun. It's just a funny way to end it, and like you said, I'm sure they were offered an unimaginable amount of money to come back and do more, right? At some point,
Yeah.
probably multiple times. I wouldn't be surprised. But the fact they were like, you know what, we left in a good way. People didn't hate it. I
No.
know some people say maybe the last few seasons aren't their favourites. Like my wife doesn't appreciate the sort of the last 7 to 10 as much as
Really?
the earliest. She's definitely a 1 to 4 kind of person compared to 7 to 10.
Okay.
I think it's all funny. I think it's all
Yeah.
funny, and I don't know if there's a better one than the other because I don't remember there being any particularly awful episodes. Like, oh, geez, I can't watch this one. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I think
I,
Yeah,
I
I
don't
think
remember
that
many. I'm sure there
we
are,
were on a
but I
break.
don't
We
remember.
were on a break is definitely like the peak in my mind, but that doesn't mean it is. That
But
sort
just
of, you
because
know,
I just think there's still hilarious moments
oh,
after that,
all the
like
way.
so funny. Like I
Yeah.
think every season has moments where it's like that was so funny, or just it's such a good moment, or very heart. You know, they had heartwarming moments in there as well.
Well, I text Jack yesterday a video of Chandler and Phoebe when she's like, "Oh, you come on a little strong," you know, for the interview,
Mm.
and she's like, "All right, let's do the interview," and she's like, "Oh, Chandler Bing, you know, what an unusual name." He's like, "Oh, you should meet my uncle Barner," and it's like, you know, and it was so funny that scene. And Jet replied, going, "I don't know how they film these scenes without laughing. They must have just been laughing the whole time."
Even just
There's just so many.
we still quote stuff like that's when it's like, well, it's a moot point.
Yeah,
I'll
amazing.
say that to Amy all the time. Yeah, well, she'll say it to me like, yeah, that's moo. And it's like, because even at the time you're like, what? And it's like, what's like a cow's opinion? It doesn't matter. You're like, it kind of does make sense.
Yeah,
um,
I love Joey and his kind of stupidness and like,
but
but
also
he's
he would
very
also destroy people as well when like just by
well. When Ross thinks he can outsmart him by going, "Oh well, I'll do what I do on dates. I'm going to buy these flowers," and he's like, "Oh well, I better do what I do on dates."
and he's like, no, please don't. Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
even like yeah, Joey's hilarious. Like Ross is like, I've been really appreciating the scent of flowers and the blueness of the
The
skies. Like
sky's
Ross,
blue.
The sky's blue, Ross. I had sex twice this morning. Or whatever it is. It's so funny.
Yeah. Do
Yeah.
you have like a favorite scene or something that has made you laugh so much when you first saw it?
Oh
Or
God, favorite scene. I don't know if I like. We were talking. I think I was saying to Amy like scene is probably too hard. Episodes are probably easier just because there's so many funny scenes. Nearly in every episode, you could say there was something that was like, wow, that was funny. Um,
like Ross and the pants that are too like the leather pants.
that's a good one. Even the one where Phoebe sees Chandler and Monica, Chandler and Monica, and she sees them,
Yeah,
and then like she's reacting, and then Ross is like, "What's going on?" And they're like, "Ah!" And they start
yeah,
screaming,
jumping around.
trying to distract him so he doesn't see it, and um, and that's a funny one. And even when Ross finds out about Chandler and Monica, it's like, "Get off my," like it's
Yeah,
that's funny. Earlier on,
the eating the sandwich is so good.
yeah, sandwich like Ross crazy sandwich, just Chandler wearing the panties because Julia Roberts tricks him into
Oh
the
yeah, Julia. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
tricks him into wearing them, which is funny. Um, just the stuff with Paolo was funny. Is when Ross is trying to get with her, even seeing Ross back in the day with like his afro or whatever was funny. Um,
Something that always that bothers me now because I've watched it from start to finish so many times, and it's Rachel, and it's how Rachel treats Ross consistently throughout the whole 10 seasons because Ross is so devoted and loving, and yeah, okay, he cheated that time, and that's bad,
they were
and
on a
that's bad.
break, Dave. They were on a break. Come on, they
they
were
were on a
on a
break.
break. He did
I
not.
yeah,
You can't cheat on a break.
I agree with that, but he is so
Maybe a bit too
there's
close to
moments
the
in there
break.
where
Maybe the timing next to the break was probably unfortunate, but it was still a break.
but 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 my point is, there's moments in there where he's dating people, and she's like, "I don't want you to date that person. I feel uncomfortable," and he's like, "Okay, I won't." But she can go out there, and she treats him so badly throughout the 10 seasons. I do love Rachel, but it always the more I watch it, I'm like, man, Ross, you could have done a bit better sometimes.
Yeah, and even when he's trying to get married, and she just comes over
Yeah,
to try and like wreck his wedding, really. And he's
yeah,
just, he's found this woman that he loves and that he was besotted with and was like sort of taken just swept up in it, and she came to ruin it. Even after
Yeah,
all of,
rightly or wrongly, he was going to marry her, and there was no problem up until that point.
yeah, yeah, we hadn't seen anything about Emily to be like, oh, she's dodgy, like
No, nothing.
nothing. So yeah, you're right. She was very up, pick him up, and even when she got pregnant, she came on to him, you
And
know.
said yes to Joey. It said yes to Joey when he
Yeah,
proposed.
Mount, she was going, when it's funny in that when they figure out who came on to who came on to whom or whatever
Oh
he
yeah,
and it,
he begged her, didn't he? Like, don't do this.
yeah, and he's like, okay, and she's like, I went hiking in the hills of Europe, and
Backpacking in Western Europe.
yeah, and they're all sort of like, oh my god, and he's like, my friend had it from Ken Adams, like Ken Adams, like it's so funny, like it's such a good moment.
I
Uh,
tell you what's really good is when they have these little arguments and then they like reveal something about one another.
yeah.
You know, it was like Monica ate the macaroni off her jewelry box. Ross stole your Playboys. When they have those
Monica
moments,
broke the porch swing.
yeah, all of that stuff is amazing, and
Yeah.
and obviously the best one is going back to what made me laugh the most is the jellyfish story, and finding out eventually that Chandler peed on Monica, and just the way that they reveal it, and he screams into his hands. I remember I couldn't watch the rest of the show. I had to rewind it or something. It was just so funny. That whole build up is brilliant. The way they tell the story, like, we're not going to tell this story.
You know what moment is later on in the show when Ross is going out with Charlie? Yeah,
Yeah.
Ross is going out with Charlie, and he gets an interview with her old lover, and she's like coming on to him again. She's like, I do still love you. His
Oh,
reaction gets me every time. I'm feeling I'm starting to feel
uncomfortable.
I feel a little uncomfortable here, and it's so funny. And he is just, um, that's it. We are seeing other people, and he walks out of the room, and it's just so funny. It's just, yeah. There's just so many, and I, probably haven't even scratched 1% of the funny moments in the show.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, it is definitely one of them ones you can just, you just throw on. It's really nice to watch. If I had to come up with something that's like, I didn't really like, I'd probably say Chandler and Monica, personally.
I used to think that, and I now have come around to it a bit
Nah,
more.
I still think she's a tyrant to him.
Do you
Um,
know? Did you watch the reunion where they weren't
yeah,
even going to write? They didn't write that, but the reaction they got was they were going to have them sleep together, but then the reaction they got was like, okay, we could go with this.
yeah. I just think she became like she was funny. I think Monica was a funny character. Her dynamic with Ross was even though their dynamics sometimes odd. I think sometimes the writers forgot that they are brother and sister, the way they talk about certain topics. Um,
Mm.
but then when she was with Chandler, especially later on, she sort of became more of a like she was just like man, like nagging him all the time, and he became less funny. I think without Joey being with Joey all the time.
I prefer the Chandler and Joey in the apartment. I always say I wish Phoebe and Joey had become a thing.
Yeah, I think that would to me would make more sense than um
And there's an
Chandler and
edit out
Monica.
there. There's an edit out there of them, like, they had many kisses. They're always flirting. They always got each other's back, and you're like,
Yeah,
why? Why not? But yeah, you can't have.
can't have them all
You can't.
get together, which I get.
Yeah, otherwise it's just called married.
Yeah, like but I would have personally, I would have said if I had to choose between the two, I'd have tried. Me personally, I would have said uh, Phoebe and Joey.
Yeah, definitely.
Um,
Okay.
but
No, we could just keep going scene after scene, couldn't we? It's like one of them
honestly, just it would just be
amazing.
very easy to talk about. As I said, we've barely
Yeah.
barely spoken about it all. What I
I
would
want.
say, I
I
think
want to give.
it's gone.
Yeah. I just want to be like, oh, Candy Lady,
Yeah.
go into scene, and because it gets me excited. It's that's the thing. It's like these scenes really hit that funny bone,
Mm.
and also it's like throwaway. It's not, but then they do have some deep moments that make you go, oh man, like, do you know what I mean? Like the breakup is one of the most awful breakups, and a very realistic breakup
Mm.
when you know when they're in the other room and when I think it's quite sad when Monica and Chandler finally get engaged or whatever, because you think it's not going to happen or she's going to end up with Richard, and they know how to pull on your heartstrings. You know what I mean? And
That's who
feed,
she should have ended up with as well, by the way. That's
nah,
no, absolutely no. Stop it. She should have absolutely.
he messed around way too
He
much.
didn't. He just didn't want kids at the time, but I'm sure he would have done it at the end, and he ended up changing anyway.
I think I think
He made way more sense than Chandler.
at the time, yeah, I think he was like, if I have to, and she's like, because you said if I have to, that's it.
Well, not
But
really, because you do stuff that you might not necessarily agree with or really want to do for your partner, but you love them. That's the
mm,
point.
I think
You're not going
it's
to do
just the age.
everything with a blimmin' smile on your face.
I loved him. I thought he was great. I loved Tom Selleck.
Yeah, he was brilliant.
He's funny in every scene, and
Yeah.
even when he's like trying to be one of the lads. I
Um,
always thought Mike, Mr. Paul Rudd
yeah.
was very funny, and
He was funny, but I think I don't know. I find his whole thing strange. I don't know.
is it
And
because he's Ant Man?
no, not because he's Ant Man. I think I don't know. Like I didn't really buy that he would be with Phoebe. I think
Yeah,
he was way too normal, and she is crazy as hell.
especially after Vikram.
Yeah, yeah. Well, this is when Ross calls up and does the accent is brilliant. It's so
I
funny.
would, I would feel like I would be letting this review down if I didn't remember all these funny scenes and like try and throw every single one. That's how much I love Friends.
Yeah, we'll be
You
here
know,
till next. We'll be here till tomorrow morning if we
I
try.
know, I
Um,
know.
so yeah, we're definitely
Oh
doing it
man,
a disservice in terms of you know all the things we haven't talked about. There's just an unimaginable amount of things that we haven't talked about. Um,
yeah.
all just as funny, or even more funny. I'm sure there are things that we haven't spoken. Oh my god, of course we didn't speak about that. But yeah, overall, I just think it's an iconic show, and one that I think I'll probably always watch. Just on and off, and it will be like, yeah, my goodness, do you know how funny that was. Um, and just sort of watch it randomly, and I think it will just carry on forever. To be honest.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Oh man, no, definitely, I agree. Start watching it and enjoy.
Yeah, definitely. Um, all right. Well, that was that's friends. We'll have to have a think about what to do next. Maybe we could talk about something that hasn't come out yet. Maybe we could talk about what's going on at DC, David.
You talk
When
about Superman Galaxy.
Legacy, Superman
Oh, sorry,
Legacy,
sorry.
and other things that have been announced, um, and maybe we could talk about the DC stuff overall, and what we would like out of anything new, maybe.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, we'll be back. But thanks for listening, and we'll see you soon.
See you later.